All right. Welcome back to the Grow Like a Mother podcast. I'm your host, Jill. I'm a time management strategist, author, and award-winning speaker and advocate for all things growth in motherhood. A really quick reminder that if you're listening to this episode on Apple or on Spotify, you can actually tune in on YouTube as well and see this conversation that I'm having with Stephanie live and in action. So today, my guest is Stephanie. She is a published parenting author with a master's in psychology. She's got two screen-loving kids of her own, and she's the co-founder of ScreenCoach, a combined hardware and software platform where kids are allocated a set amount of screen time. And then after their time is up, they need to go and complete activities like exercise or chores or reading to earn more time before they can resume. I absolutely love this idea. I'm so excited for this conversation. In addition to this ScreenCoach business, Stephanie is also a life coach and a spiritual mentor, and she spent the past 2 years researching as much as she can about screen time to really support parents. So, welcome to the show. Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
It's going to be such a fun conversation. We're going to be talking about your experience with your oldest having a screen addiction. We're going to be talking about how you created ScreenCoach, dopamine cycles, and what the impact is, all the things. But take us back to the beginning first and tell us a little bit about your experience with your own family and screens.
So, I had really poor health in my 20s and in my 30s and a little bit into my 40s. I dealt with like a lot of chronic anxiety issues. And I've got to be honest that I found it really hard to be present with my kids and to just slow down and to probably give them the time they needed. And our eldest struggled at school. They're very, very intelligent, very bright, um, very wise and old soul. And so the kids at school, they never found anyone that they really could connect with. And, I remember even at 3 years old, um, he, or no, it was four, he was four when he figured out the Easter Bunny wasn't real. Like, this is how smart this kid is, right? Came home from kindy and said, after the Easter Bunny thing, and said, Mum, the Easter Bunny's not real, is it? Like, this is the kind of kid we're talking about, right? And it wasn't like, and is the Easter Bunny real? Like, I don't want to really know that it's not. He'd already figured it out. He's like, the Easter Bunny is real, is it? And I was like, there's no way I'm going to. So I'm like, no, the Easter Bunny's not real. Oh, so how do the staff get, or how do the eggs get there? And I'm like, well, the staff do all that. But, a lot of kids want to play along and blah, blah, blah. So that's the kind of kid we're dealing with. Anyway, they spent a lot of time. They loved video games because they were so engaging. So, because when you've got a bright, active mind and you're bored, lifeless at school, they lost themselves in the love of their video games. So at the age of 14, they actually were in so much anxiety and stress at school that they became addicted and just completely lost themselves in screens for about 3 months. And it took a lot of work to therapy, energy healing, all sorts of things, anything that we could try to help them to kind of rebuild and start a new life at a different school. And the school were amazing, and the new school were amazing, and transitioned him back in, and we got there in the end. But yeah, it was tough. It was tough.
Wow. Was this timing at all near the pandemic, or was it sort of like way before we even
No, so
experienced that?
no, so he's 20 now, so it was well before the pandemic.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow. And
yeah,
that's, I mean, I think probably at that point in time, it was something that was new to most of us because post-pandemic, we can
yes,
see these addictions come through a lot more than we used to. So
absolutely,
how
absolutely.
how did that experience prompt you to start Screen Coach? Like, was that, I imagine that was um
Yeah,
a direct
definitely.
impact.
Yeah, definitely. So, my husband Peter tried a lot of the sort of solutions that were out there back then and even since, and they were all just very linear. Give your kid 2 hours and cut them off, and that was it. And then all that, it's just it just caused fights. The kid would just beg to get back on. Like there was just no. So our philosophy as entrepreneurs, and I'm sure a lot of people listening would feel the same way, is that, we believe that you get out of life what you put into it. And, so in terms of screen time, and we've also added a pocket money feature into ScreenCoach because we're very passionate about financial literacy. And with the lack of cash that we're using in our day-to-day lives, it's really difficult for kids to have a tangible awareness of what things are worth and how much, to save up. And, the difference between, like our daughter, the difference between something that was $10 and $100, she had no idea before we started really managing her own pocket money and allowance, and learning how to save up and realizing the difference between the things in the value. So with ScreenCoach, the kids, they do have their time limited, and they have times when they have to be off screens, but they can actually go and earn more time by doing the things that they need to do. And they get rewarded with either screen time, which they come up as tokens in the app, or as gems, which then convert into pocket money. And so, the kids, they just constant have that reinforcement and feedback that when they're doing the right things for their body and for their minds and for their, for the family, and to keep that family harmony going. The thing that we've found with ScreenCoach is that it takes the onus off the parents being the bad cop. So the conflict of the parents always needing to hassle the kids to get off their screens, come for dinner, do your homework, get up, get ready for school, go to bed. Like it's constant during the day. And we've lived it and we know what it's like. And, and I was just going to finish that thought because I'm getting too many thoughts popping into my head all at the one time.
I know what that's like.
To take the onus off the parents being the bad cop, was even though the kid knows that the parent has instigated ScreenCoach in the family, if it's ScreenCoach that's kicking the kids off, they're just way less likely to argue. They just realize, okay, well, that's my time's up. And I'm, obviously there's a transition period in the beginning, there's an adjustment period, but once those routines are set in place, and we've seen it with our daughter, who thankfully is young enough to be able to use ScreenCoach, because, once the kids get over sort of 15 or 16, then that's their own person and their own decisions. But our daughter started using ScreenCoach when she was 13, and she still uses it and she loves it, even though she sometimes complains that it kicks her off at, 9:45 at night, so she has to go to bed. She's actually really grateful that it does, because she knows then she's got a bit of time to get herself ready for school, to wind down, and then to go to sleep at a reasonable hour so she can wake up feeling okay.
Mm-hmm. Now this makes me think of how useful it could be for parents like me who have a hard time holding our boundaries, right? Because I have good intentions. I use the screen time app on my little iPhones, the old iPhones of mine, the kids have as like a play around on the Wi-Fi kind of device instead of an iPad or whatever. And I use the screen time and I limit it to 90 minutes and I do the start and end time, but they know that I can override it. And to be honest with you, 9 times out of 10, if they ask me, I'll just override it because I'm busy right? And so this feels like a really cool way to get around that and to help the parent hold their boundaries a little bit stronger. I'm curious to know how it works. Is it, so in the intro, we said it was a hardware and software. So is this something that we purchase or is it an app? Tell us more about that.
Okay. So the hardware option is not really a thing at the moment. It's kind of parked there until we grow a bit further. So you do not need to purchase any hardware. It's basically an app. It works across all of the multiple platforms. I won't say all of the platforms, but it works on Android phones, iPhones, iPads, Apple computers, PCs, Windows, laptops, and PCs. So because when we did our market research, the parents were saying, well, I can set the timer, the Apple screen time on the iPad, but then they just open the laptop.
Yeah.
Or, and so we call that the device merry-go-round. Or they'll turn on the TV, and that's the hardware box. It manages the time on the TV. But once you've set the maximum amount of time, or you've got the time limits or the zones of time, so you can set maximum amounts of times in a day. You can set routines so that they might be allowed on it at 7 in the morning, but they have to get off at 7:45 because they get ready for school. You can set it daily. So on the weekend, it changes. On Saturday, it's different. On a Sunday, it's different. So you can set it per day. And so, but then the thing is that once the kids get off, that once the kids are blocked from their devices and they have to get off, they can still run ScreenCoach. Okay, so the one app that's not blocked is ScreenCoach, and they can look through the list of activities that you've predefined, and you've sat down with them and had that conversation and said, all right, so what kind of activities could you do when you're not on screens? Because this is our challenge, right? Because we're busy, we don't have time to like amuse them. And with the dopamine hits that they're constantly getting, anything off screens feels really dull. The more time they have on screens, the more dull anything else is off screens and boring, the less they want to initiate anything because they've got no dopamine to kind of get that motivation. And so they don't know what to do with themselves. And then they just hassle the parents, and the parents just give them the device back because it's easier. Whereas if they can open ScreenCoach, say, well, if you want to get back on, you need to go and earn more time. You need to open ScreenCoach and look at the activities, and then they can scroll through their activities and they go, okay, I'll go and play the piano for half an hour, if that's their thing. Or, okay, I'll go and jump on the trampoline for 15 minutes, or I'll read my book for a while, or whatever it is. And then you're like, okay, if you've done those activities, then I can approve it. And you get out your parent device, you approve the activities, and they earn more tokens, and then they can get back on.
I love this. So it's an opportunity for us to sit and have the conversations with our kids.
Yeah.
Give them other options, because I see this with my two older kids, a 15 and 11-year-old. They're like, they have no idea what to do if they don't have a screen. And it's like, okay, well, I can give them all these ideas, but they're kind of like the same thing. Like, it's all boring. And now I'm like, oh, it's because you're not getting the same dopamine, because you're getting this like fake happy stuff from your screens, which is making everything else feel more dull. I hadn't ever realized that, which is very interesting. Now, I wonder, you had mentioned that your daughter at 13 started using it at 13, and that was sort of a good range. What is the age range that you would recommend for parents who could utilize this for kids? Like how young do we start?
So I reckon about age 5. If you're finding the child is, gravitating towards screens. We're actually about to release a new version of the app, which has a lot more images with the activities. So if the kids can't read very much yet, they can look at the pictures. So brush your teeth, read a book, so we've got those images that we're putting in to help younger kids, because I'm interviewing parents with 2-year-olds who are screen addicted, who just can't control themselves off screens. Like, it's alarming. Mm-hmm. And it's because our parent, with our parent, as parents, we have no support. I wrote a blog post about the real reason behind, this rise in screen time. And it's because there's no intergenerational support. Mothers don't know what to do with their kids. They're busy, like they have to work because of, the cost of living and housing and everything else. Just to be able to live, they need to work, or sometimes work 2 jobs. Their partner's sometimes working 2 jobs, if they even have one. And they're overwhelmed, they're anxious, there's no downtime. And like, we're just living in this crazy world. And so when our toddler needs us and we don't know what to do, it's just so easy to put a phone in or an iPad in their hands. And it's like, oh, thank God I can get a moments of peace. Mm-hmm. And then, you take it away, and then the child just, it's like, because as a 2-year-old, even if they've got a soft toy that they're cuddling, if you just snatch it off them, they're going to scream, because a 2-year-old doesn't understand that whatever it is that they're holding is not part of them. So I can't remember the actual psychological term. It's ego-oriented something or other. But the child doesn't understand that whatever they've got at that time, they think it's part of themselves. Mm-hmm. So if you all of a sudden say, oh my God, you need to get off that phone, and you take it away from them quickly, of course they're going to tantrum and have a meltdown, because it's like part of them is going to die. And they don't understand that they can have it back tomorrow or later. Like, they don't understand that time. So, the government guidelines say children 2 and under should not have any screen time at all, like 0, including TV. So, if you want to turn the TV on and it's something quiet and passive that they can watch while you're getting dinner or doing something urgent, then, do that, but just be really, really mindful with the little kids about screens. But getting back to the dopamine, I'd really like to just explain that a little bit further about how it works.
Please.
So the dopamine cycle with screen time, the dopamine actual mechanism is the same with alcohol addiction, gambling, cocaine, anything else. This is not just with screens. This is the addiction cycle with any substance or behavior. So what happens is that the screen time gives us artificial micro hits of dopamine continuously. Okay, so when we're living a life and our biology is no different than, even 50 years ago, like no one had even heard of a device. There was just TV was only, well, devices were just coming in. But say 100 years ago, we had only just very minor little tiny bits of dopamine during the day. Like, you get it. Dopamine is a motivational chemical that encourage us to behave in a certain way. And literally without dopamine, we would have no motivation to do anything. Like we would literally just be like zombies. So it's such an important chemical. But what happens is when we get these artificial micro dopamine hits through screens, whether it be social media scrolling, whether it be, playing games, or even talking to our friends, like chatting, and so it's like hit, 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 hit. And then what happens is the brain's set point increases. So we actually need more dopamine to get the same feeling of, that stimulation of wanting to do anything. And then we spend another day on screens and it increases again. Okay. And so then if your kid's screen time is getting out of control and you can just see it creeping up and up and up, and you're like, oh my God, I've really got to do something about this. And you say to the kids, right, this weekend, no screens. I'm locking them all in the cupboard. Well, the kids are just like, it's not their fault. They cannot function when they're not having their screens if they're high screen users. They literally, their dopamine, the set point is so high that they need constant stimulation in order to be able to do anything. So what I recommend is it's really important to have regular breaks with the kids, because the good news about the dopamine, that level, is that if you take screens away, it actually comes back to its set point quite quickly. So that's the good news. So if you do want to do a detox on a weekend or something like that, I recommend pre-planning activities outside of the home that the kids are going to enjoy. Get them out in nature. That's the other thing with too much screen time that I don't think that we talk very much about, is the electromagnetic frequencies. Like these kids and adults as well. Like we've got the Wi-Fi on 24/7. You can't go anywhere in a main city without being exposed to EMFs. It's on public transport. It's in cafes. It's, on the freaking street is Wi-Fi. And then you've got the 5G towers that are popping up everywhere. And like, we just don't spend enough time outside. We don't spend enough time in nature, and the kids aren't getting enough sleep. And I believe that because there's a huge, big media push at the moment to ban social media for kids under 16 here in Australia. And first of all, logistically, I don't know how they can do that. But second of all, I believe our mental health crisis is because not enough exercise and not enough sleep. Because just take away those two things without a screen in the world, and you're going to get anxiety. You're going to get depression, because that's just the way we're wired. And sleep, the average amount of sleep that we're getting each night is dropping. I think it's like an hour less than it was like 30 years ago. Like that's a lot every single night. And we don't sleep. We don't go to bed on time because we're just staring at our screens, and the blue light of the screens is affecting our circadian rhythms and our hormone rhythms. And so, if you've got a young person that's really struggling to sleep, get them out in nature, barefoot on the grass if you can, go on a hike. And, it does take time, and you've got to get yourself organized so that you can take the kids away and to do that. And then you'll find after a few days of no screens and of keeping them engaged, then the dopamine set point will reduce, and they'll have more zest for life. They'll have a more will to live without screens after that. But it's hard. Like it's hard because they're everywhere, at school every single day. Most of the young people use a laptop or an iPad at some point during the day. So unless you're going to homeschool and live out in the forest, which, you know, most of us don't want to or can't. It's hard. And that's why we invented ScreenCoach. And, you know, some people will say, oh, you know, kids shouldn't really be rewarded for like doing the things that they need to do every day anyway. Okay, so that's a common argument that we get, you know, oh, this whole rewards thing, you know, kids should know that they should just do things from, you know, because it's their responsibility as part of the family, etc. And while I agree with that argument in principle, because we're battling this fight against the screens and the companies that make them, you know, they spend millions of dollars on consultants and psychologists to make them maximum engaging, to keep your eyes on them so that they can sell more advertising, etc. We're fighting this battle against this behemoth, you know, thing. And so to me, it's kind of like utilizing some of those things that keep them glued to screens to actually get them doing the things that they need to do by just offering these little rewards with tokens and gems. And you know, and in terms of the allowance and the pocket money, I was always the thing that, you know, the kids shouldn't be paid to do chores because, you know, they should just do them as part of their family. But the reality is that 50% of kids don't do any chores. They don't do any help around the house at all.
Wow.
And they're begging their parents for money for things. So you may as well pay them, do the chores, help you around the house, and then they've got to manage their own money. And so if they come to you and say they want to buy this or that, say, well, you've got your own money. Have a look at your balance in ScreenCoach and see what, you know, how much money you've got. And then if you saved up $100 or whatever it is, then, you know, you can have it. So if you want to do more chores around the house, you can earn more money. And it comes back to that philosophy that if you want something and you're willing to work for it, you can have anything.
Wow. I love that. This is so smart. I love the flexibility that you build into it for each individual family to do it the way that makes sense for them. I love that we're teaching kids values and a little bit of delayed gratification,
Yes.
breaking that cycle, getting them out for whatever specified amount of times, right? Like talking to them about the different activities they can do, encouraging the outside time, the physical movement. This is all like music to my ears. I can't wait to go download this for my kids. But I want to also ask you about your 3-step process to help us manage the screen time and empower the
Yes.
kids to make these great choices so that they can grow up
Yeah.
with healthy habits. Can we talk about that
Yeah.
a little bit?
Yes. So if you're brave enough and you want to do it on your own without the use of something like ScreenCoach, the 3 steps are, well, the first one is education. Okay. So you need to have continual conversations with your children about, talk to them about what I've just shared about the dopamine cycle. I know with our eldest, talking to him about that at that time was really powerful because he is so smart, and explaining to him why he feels just so helpless when he's off screens. Educating them, sit with them and let them educate you about what it is that they're doing on their screens. What do they love about this game or that game? You know, talk to them about how they're feeling when they play certain games. So, you know, we know that with very intensive games like Fortnite that are time limited, and, you know, the first person shooter games, that they can get very hyped up, and it can be a very, you know, that's when they can lead to moodiness, mood swings, tantrums, that kind of thing. Talk to them about that. Educate your kids about how they're feeling. Get them to feel into their body. Get them to recognize how screens make them feel. And then if you do a couple of days detox, talk to them about how they're feeling after that. You know, I remember we did do a detox with our eldest when he was about 8. And I remember him saying, even though it was hard, I remember him saying, Mum, I can literally feel my brain like winding down. Like he could literally feel it at that time. So get your kids to understand that, so that when they're adults, they can self-manage and they have that self-awareness themselves, because we want to set our kids up to, you know, live out their lives when we're not around, okay, in a healthy manner. Because if we're just controlling them all the time, A, they're going to rebel, and B, they're going to not going to be able to do it when they're left the nest or when they're old enough. So that's the first thing that's really important, education. The second thing is routines. Okay, kids kids really respond well to routines that are fixed. And my theory about nagging, when the kids nag, kids only nag when they know that there's a chance that you'll give in. Okay, so if you write up the boundaries on the fridge, so sit down with your kids again, have a conversation and say, right, screens are causing so much conflict in this house. We're all unhappy. Okay, when we interviewed kids before we started ScreenCoach, they admitted to us that they hate the screen time battles. They hate fighting with their parents about it, even though they want more screens. Again, they can't help it, right? It's like it's so wired in our brains to want to pick up that phone. Even as adults, I think the American statistic is that we check our phone like 190 times a day or something insane. So be empathetic with your kids. Sit down with them and say, right, we're going to come up with some boundaries and routines, and then write them up on the fridge, and then have a way to stick to them. Okay, so if you don't use ScreenCoach, then you're going to have to be on top of it, but for the first couple of months. But then once the routine is in place, you'll find that the kids hopefully will be able to then stick to that routine. Okay, so education, routines, and the third one is the empathy and the emotional intelligence. So about, teaching those kids about the boundaries, making sure that they're aware of the different types of screen time and its impact on them. So if the active screen time versus the passive screen time, if they're just kicking back and, watching a nice Netflix drama or something, that has a different impact on our physiology than if we're playing intense first-person shooter games or Fortnite, or even Roblox for the younger kids. That can have, because it can be very fast-paced. It's a steep learning curve when the kids first get on, and that can, be quite intensive. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And educate the kids about the importance of a healthy balance, and how important exercise is, how important, and sleep is. The statistics around our children's health are just alarming, and I'm not sure that everything is to do with screen time, but I'm sure a lot of it is. The obesity is just, levels are crazy high. 6% more kids every single year needing glasses because they're short-sighted. The gross and fine motor coordination is low because kids aren't playing and climbing and doing things with their bodies when they're, before age 7. Then, they're just sitting and staring at a screen. Speech delays, emotional relationship building, like social issues because they're not spending time in real life actually engaging with other humans. Yeah, it's a real problem.
No kidding. My gosh, there is so much to unpack with this. And I think that it's really interesting. I mean, it's all so interesting to me that this is where we're at in life, where this is our
Yes.
reality, and that we do
Yes.
have to take these kinds of measures to like not only get ourselves comfortable helping our kids, but like that the kids need to learn from such a young age how to manage their screen time with our help. And I'm curious to know what your thoughts are in terms of how we as the adults, like modeling behavior with the phones, how much that impacts the kids. Like, is there ScreenCoach for adults? Do we need it?
So that is on our roadmap. We would love to introduce ScreenCoach for adults. And the way that we would like to do that is to have like a buddy system where you have a trusted other person that becomes like the parent, like that has the control. And but I think, and then so if you need an extra, so the other thing in ScreenCoach is, whilst it's got these really set boundaries, we know that life doesn't work always in a linear fashion. So you can go in and you can unblock your child's device for maybe a half an hour or whatever time you set, if there's something unusual going on and you need them, then they just want to finish their show or whatever it is. But modeling the behavior is so important, and that's where the empathy comes in, because you can say to your kids, I know what it's like. That I struggle not to have my phone next to me when we're watching a show, or when we go out for a walk or whatever. And so work with your kids and do it with them and say, all right, well, if I expect you to be off the screens and off the phones whilst we're preparing dinner, eating dinner together and cleaning up afterwards, then I'm going to put my phone away too. Unless if you explain to them there's something super urgent going on with work, or you're expecting a call, then you explain that to them, and that's why you have to have it close by. But I think it is an opportunity to do it with your kids at those times, to put your phone away and your laptop, close your laptop, be present as a family for that, hour and a half, 2 hours, and everyone will benefit. Or go for a walk with them, when they have to exercise, you go for a walk with them, leave your phone at home.
Yeah. I try to do a lot of that too, and it really does make a big difference,
Yeah, it's hard
Yeah.
though. I'm totally addicted to my phone. I'll put my hand up and say, I feel really anxious if I go for a walk and I realize I've left my phone at home. Even though just walking locally, like it's hard. But the kids and I, we can do it together. Usually I will bring my phone, but I'll just make a conscious effort not to like look at it, or just to leave it in my pocket.
hmm
Mm.
As we're wrapping up, Stephanie, is there like one piece of advice that, or something you wish everyone listening would really hear today that you can leave us with?
The one thing that I want to convey, because mothers who are listening to this, please don't be hard on yourself if your kids' screen time has become out of control. These corporations, they're designed to keep the kids and us as glued to screens as possible. We're busy, we're anxious, we're living in this fast-paced, materialistic society. We often don't get help. We don't ask for help. We don't have help around us. We're carrying a lot. So if your kids' screen time has got out of control, if you've got young ones and you can see the damage already, please don't be hard on yourself. It's not too late. It's never too late. Sit down with your kids, have a really open, frank conversation. Tell them how you're feeling. Tell them how it needs to be reined in, and we need to make some changes. Get their input. How much screen time do they think that they should have during the day? You'll be really surprised what they say. All the parents will say, oh, that kids will say unlimited. But no, that's not what actually happens. If you sit down and you be really open with them and you say, I'm going to do it with you too, I need to try harder as well. And if you have that empathy and you have that open conversation, listen to their objections. But yeah, forgive yourself if you're struggling. Be easy, go easy on yourself, because I think we're already too hard on ourselves as mothers. If you're listening to this, good on you. Go to the app stores. It's in the Apple and the Google Play Store. Download ScreenCoach today. Install it on one spare device or one of your kids' devices, set it up as the child. You set yourself up as a parent, get to know it. We've got chat support in there if you need a hand to set it up, because it is a little bit of work setting it up because there are so many features. But once it's set up, honestly, it will make your life so much easier. And that's what I'm really passionate about, is taking a bit of the burden off the mums from having to manage the screen time, because honestly, the energy to keep that up every day, and then if you don't keep it up, the worry is crazy, especially if we're entrepreneurs and we're trying to do all these things for ourselves. Then that's my passion, is taking some of the burden off the parents, and also obviously improving the health and the well-being of our kids.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that little permission slip for us to give ourselves some grace in this, because we're all navigating it for the first time and we're
Mm-hmm.
doing our best and the forces are working against us. And so, yes, I'm going to take that one and remember it. Thank you. And if you guys are listening and you made it to the end and you're really excited about this idea like I am, please go download the app. I will put all of the links as well to website and socials and all of that for Stephanie and for ScreenCoach in the show notes. And we'd love to hear, like, when you download this, screenshot it, tag us both, send us a note wherever you're on social media when it's your allotted time, and share with us what benefits you've seen and what progress and what you're excited about. We really just want to know that this is helpful for you. This is our goal. And so, yeah. Thank you again so much for being here, Stephanie. It's been a real pleasure learning from you and knowing about this option. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
And until next week, everybody, keep on growing like a mother.